Hello, my friends. Football Manager on their Twitter account has just announced new gameplay features coming out for FM20. And so I'm going to take an initial look at them so that you're aware of them and get your feedback and share my thoughts. So let's hop right into it, shall we? First off, I want to point out Miles said, FM Digi said, I'm absolutely loving the long-term aspect of some of the features. The idea of signing on with the club and knowing in 4 years I need to win is huge. Well done. This is Miles, who kind of runs everything for Sports Interactive. In case you don't know, you should follow there. You should follow him there because he's going to be doing feature roulette, is what he calls it, where there's like apparently 60 new features that they're putting in FM20, and he's going to release like 1 or 2 every day. So make sure again that you follow Miles SI on Twitter. So thank you for noticing. If there's a theme to this year's features, it's long-term play, which, given the average playtime of over 250 hours per person, makes a lot of sense. So that, to me, as we go through this, kind of sets the tone as to what to expect from Football Manager 20. Some of these things may seem minor. Some of them are incremental, and that's fine. But some of them do look to be pretty nice. So you've got Development Center. Well, I'll do the overview first, and then we'll go look at each one individually. Development Center, so it's developing talent, unearthing wonder kids, etc. So they got an all-new Development Center to help you do that. It doesn't look like this. That's a photo. It's not. Okay. You've got Club Vision, which is really interesting. It to me appears to be like an enhanced version of club philosophy that you have when you sign on or you renew your contract with a club. So it's deeper than that. They've got some graphic improvements. I'm actually quite excited about that. They got improvements to backroom staff and recommendations that they make. And I think this is clutch right here. I'm kind of surprised this is down at the bottom. Is a playing time pathway. So instead of offering key player, first team, rotation, etc. titles for contract, you've got star player, important player, future prospect, youngster, first choice goalkeeper, cup goalkeeper, backup, and emergency backup. And as we look into that one, it allows you to determine, like, in this year, we're going to do this, right? And kind of build up. So without further ado, let's look at the Development Center. There's a lot of information here you can read, so I'm going to put the link to the feature page in the description below. But essentially, when you look at it, it's an all-encompassing hub. You track the progress of your players. So it sits on the sidebar. It's got its own thing down here, okay? Brings together all areas of the game, blah, 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 blah. Overview screen. Let's take a look at it. Make it big for you here. So let's just, without reading what they put on here, you've got players out on loan. You got your second team strong squad, which is interesting. You know, a group of youngsters who are close to being ready for first team opportunities. We have high hopes. And then your under 19 squad. So I think that's interesting because over here, right, you don't see, you know, like in FM19 and 18 previous, you could have like a B team like that plays in its own league. And this to me is, hey, your backup players, your rotation players that are coming through, it's giving you an opinion on that, which looks pretty cool to me. And then an under 19 squad. First team candidates. So it's saying, like, if you're going to pick somebody, now you could argue, right? Like, you're probably going to play your 5-star potential play, you know, your under 19 players, right? If you got a 16-year-old promising midfielder that's got 5 stars on your under 19 and you got a low level cup, you're probably going to play him anyway. But this is just a nice way for Football Manager to encourage you to do that and say, like, hey, FYI, you might, you know, try playing some of these kids, right? Needs attention, ones to watch. It overall looks pretty good. The backroom staff provides recommendations, advice on the players, including some of the new staff roles, which again we'll talk about. That has progression graphs to give a clear guide on how a player's current ability is developing month to month. So it sounds like an improvement on the attribute chart, doing something a little bit different there. You've seen something you shrink your youth teams. Okay, we already talked about that. Tracking the development center. It's now easier to track players in and out on loan with access to performance and ratings. I think that's awesome because the current loan screen I think is mediocre. And you could say this looks like the exact same thing, but it has a progress bar. So again, I'm going to withhold judgment until I actually get to play the game, right? Because it's great that they, you know, when you look at this, right, you got the names and the clubs, when it expires, appearances, assisted goals, average rating. Again, I can't remember off the top of my head, but that sounds pretty similar to what you have right now. You just don't have the progress bar. But if you've got issues with progress, yeah, I would be curious more if you have more control over talking to the opposition, or not the opposition, but the loan manager, right? Like the Servette FC manager to be like, hey, you're not playing Ryan here enough, right? Like you told us it was going to be whatever the equivalent was for rotation that's in the previous screen I just showed you. You know, like, so I'd be curious if that's built in, because just adding a progress bar, okay. Let's see. Previously, you'd only be able to see this information in individual loan report cards. Now you're able to see both basic and in-depth information on all players on one loan screen. Is that true? Okay. Okay. Offer a preview your yearly youth intake. For so long, it's been a date in the diary for all managers to look forward to, but now you'll get information before. Ooh. See, this is live reaction. The new crop of talent arrives, so you can gauge the level of talent and plan accordingly. In the months leading up to the arrival of your youth intake, you can visit the Youth Candidates tab in the Development Center to access the preview. Not only will you see an indication of how strong that year's intake will be, including whether or not they're going to be any high potential players coming through, but also any positions that are going to be well covered by the intake. That's interesting. Okay, when your youth intake does arrive, you can view individual reports on each of the players and quickly see each player's current and potential building ratings so that you can identify future stars from them when they arrive at your club. This, to me, has the potential to be massive, because what has driven me crazy with Football Manager is you have your youth intake and your head of youth development. It's like, oh, I'm putting my name on this player, and they're garbage. And not only are they sometimes garbage, but like these half-star, now I'm curious because it still shows them as half-stars. So a lot of these players, right, you get these half-star players, you go ahead and sign them, and it turns out they're gray stars. Like, and they're like 2 gray stars. Like, they're not even close to being a half yellow star, right? Does that make sense? And so I always kind of go like, wait, they're coming through our youth intake. Wouldn't we know their actual ability as it compares to the rest of the squad? And why would it be a half a yellow star, and then when you sign them, it turns into gray stars? So I'm curious if that is different in FM20. We're going to have to wait to see. I like that you could see what's coming. Like, that's freaking amazing. To see like, hey, we got a 14-year-old that's coming down the pike and looks pretty good. That allows you to plan to go like, maybe that, like, again, whatever you call it, rotation or whatever the squad status is, winger that we've got, we might try like loaning them out or selling them so that we can get Zenon William Macris more playing time as a 15-year-old or 16-year-old or something like that. So I think that's a nice touch. It's going to depend on what happens with these half stars for me to be like, ooh, this is amazing. Let's see here. The Development Center also incorporates some management options for your youth and reserve squads. Each squad has its own tab within the Development Center with a drop-down menu containing a wealth of squad information. You can view everything from the current match tactics team and individual training, dynamic screens, and recent match analysis. You can also make decisions and changes from within these menus. For example, adding first-team squad members into your youth squad for an upcoming fixture from the tactics screen. Okay, so a little bit more nuanced control is what it sounds like for your reserve and youth teams, and say like, hey, I've got, Valbon looks like he's coming back from injury. We're gonna put him in, or give him whatever 90 minutes or 45 minutes, or have him start. Or again, I don't know if giving them the start is an option, but it looks like it gives you a little bit more control there. I'm curious if it still says, do you want to take over training for all players, right? Like, that's one of the things where in FM19, right, if I want to train my left back here as a wing back, but I don't take over training for all players, then my under 19 manager runs the training, right? And then might be training them as a fullback. So if I really want to control that, I can't just take over just that player. I have to take over all players, which I think is a bit annoying. So I'm curious if that's changed. We'll have to find out. The final tab in the Development Center is a staff drop-down menu. From within this menu, you can see your youth coaching, scouting, and medical teams. Just like in the staff section of the sidebar, you're able to view the strength of your youth staff compared to your competitors, yada, yada, yada. It really comes into its own when dealing with high-potential players, the Development Center, by having them highlighted to you from the moment they arrive and being able to track their progress through the time of the youth squads, yada, yada, yada. This information all depends, of course, on whether your coaching staff have got it right, which is why they're more important than ever this year. Again, they're getting you to go look at the other feature from the staff side. Okay. Overall, I'm pleased. Again, there's some things where they're calling these the headline features, like the major changes. So we'll have to kind of wait to see what it actually looks like with an implementation, because again, going back to Miles, he has said elsewhere on Twitter that there's like 60 different changes coming in FM20. So how major are those changes? How minor are they? But overall, okay, looks like a nice touch. Let's go check out the rest here. Club Vision. So essentially, right, I'm not going to read all the text on this one. You got your culture. So, hey, we tend to sign players under the age of 20 for the future, right? That's preferred. Work within the wage budget is now, like, you have favored, preferred, and required is what I'm seeing here. So if you take a job and you tell, in this case, Watford, that you will work within the wage budget because that's a requirement of your job. If you go over your wage budget, they'll probably sack you, would be my guess, right? They want you to make a significant profit on transfers. Well, that makes sense. Sign players to develop for profit. They prefer that you do that. So it gives you a lot of control here, and you've got a 5-year plan. So I wonder if this will change the thing where it's like you get, like sometimes you get promoted too fast and then you get relegated and you get sacked. So I wonder if there's a thing in here where it's like, we want to make it to the Premier League, right? But if you get relegated, we want to get back, right? Or something like that. So it's giving you a vision for, this is what the next 5 years needs to look like. This is what we expect. So it's not like all of a sudden they're going to expect you to knock it out of the park in all the competitions. So I wonder also if it's going to change some of the screens where it's like, the board is just telling you, here's your wage budget, here's your transfer budget, here's what we think is important, right? Even though you may not have agreed to it. Right? Like, hey, we don't care about these competitions or these cups, but we care about this. So that's interesting. Ongoing objectives, clubs follow your plan. As we've seen over the past decades, boards have had greater say not only how the club is run as a business, but in football matters too. Set targets around club's transfer policy as well as the style of football. Okay, let's look here at what this screen looks like. New objectives versus previous objectives. So again, you've got the club vision meeting right now. It's just not as nuanced as this. So in 2021/22, reach the League One playoffs. And then by the 24-25 season, win promotion to the championship. So that's interesting. It's like you can kind of set goals where it's like, hey, we just got promoted or we want to get promoted, or we want to be in the playoffs first, and then a couple years later we want to get promoted, rather than, only having one option, right? So that's interesting. You can suggest new objectives, pushing back by a season or two. Okay. Let's say you've been tasked with winning silver in the next 3 years. You can negotiate with the board to remove this objective, but you'll need to offer something in return, such as qualifying for Europe one season, earlier than expected, or delivering a large increase to the club's commercial revenue. Ooh, commercial revenue. I'm curious if they've got that. That's not listed as a major change, but I'm curious if somewhere within Football Manager 20 is a change to that. Adjust your season expectations, including the option to ask the board to not judge you on a certain competition. This can be particularly useful if you're doing well in the league and want to sacrifice your performances in a competition to give you the best chance of achieving a good position. I like that, right? Hey, we may not win the Premier League, but we're going to try and win the Champions League, and it's going well. Or, since Liverpool lost to Napoli, hey, let's take some of the focus off the Champions League and focus all on the Premier League, and being able to balance that out makes sense, right? Like I think you've seen clubs do that. Not necessarily that example, but I think you've seen clubs do that. Achieving a period of sustained success and hitting your objectives early may lead to the board setting more ambitious targets over the following seasons. You begin new objectives when you join a new club that are contextualized to the club's culture and position within the footballing world. This helps to keep long-term saves feeling fresh and ensures you'll be challenged wherever you decide to move next. Considering that I've got 190 something episodes on one save, I like things where they're like, hey, we understand players play long-term saves. That's good. What you become known for as a manager can also have bearing on your appeal to other club boards. Okay. If you've honed a particular attacking style of football, you'll be known for this around the world, which would make you more appealing to a board that has a playing style included as part of the club vision. So, like, there may be some clubs you're like, why aren't they approaching me? And it's like, well, they play, more defensive, right? This could even lead to you being picked ahead of other candidates, even if you have less experience or managing at a lower level than your competitors for the role. That's interesting. So journeyman saves might be interesting in FM20. Your club vision will be presented to you in the new welcome meeting. Another major element of wider overhaul. Blah, 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 blah. New boardroom 3D environment. Okay, great. During the meeting, okay, this is good. Okay, so during the meeting, you'll learn more about the club, get an idea of the players at your disposal, including your best matchday squad, and have the opportunity to schedule in the manager inductions that will guide you around. Okay, is that before you take the job? Hold on, let's go back to this. Okay, no, it's part of the new welcome meeting. I would be curious when you go to change clubs, right? Like, this is all great, but wouldn't you like to know that before? Like, unless I'm reading it wrong, it's just like if I don't know, Jurgen Klopp goes to move from Dortmund to Liverpool, I'm guessing he didn't just go like, oh, you're going to give me this wage budget and transfer budget, and you want me to play attacking football? Sure. I'm guessing he did a little bit more research in terms of what's the squad look like? What's the, all the things around the club. So I'm curious if prior, this is the welcome meeting, like, okay, this is already part of, this is the next section, but like great that you've hired me, but I want to be able to do research beforehand before I take that job in like a journeyman save. If you're just starting up with Watford and you're going to play with Watford the entire FM20, then it doesn't really matter as much because you're going to play with whatever you got. But it looks like you're going to get monthly updates, so that's interesting. Again, you've got the club vision matches, so the fans are involved, transfers, tactics. Okay, interesting. Okay. Again, little kind of wait to see on most of this. Graphic improvements. They had a nice animated thing on the Football Manager Twitter. You can go check. But you get they got different shoes and tie clip and all that kind of stuff. Me personally, like, it's great to show them like this. They're talking about how the fabric lays more naturally. That's great. I think at the how far up the camera is, I don't know if this ultimately really matters. Now, what they have talked about, I was going to show, it's not actually on here. Maybe it's in one of the other screens, is they look a lot more, like the new gen faces look a lot more human. Like there was something else on Twitter where like someone has zoomed in on one of the things that's like, oh, you can kind of tell. The thing I'm excited about is this. I mean, we all said the laces of the shoes and give them a more discernible shape. Great. That's not what I'm excited about. This is what I'm excited about. Pitches are now affected by the weather in an obvious manner. During a game played in rainy conditions, for example, you'll notice sodden patches appearing in certain sections of the pitch, whereas if a game is played out during a period of sunny weather, you'll notice the pitch will appear dried out and lighter in color. Now, does that impact gameplay? It doesn't say that. It does say we've added water or mud particles flying off from the surface of the pitch, which will lead to visible deterioration. Is it just visible? I'm guessing not. Like, that'd be weird if it was just visible. If they were able to say, like, okay, this part of the pitch is going to be really muddy because you're playing in Scotland's League 2, but it doesn't impact gameplay. I think my guess would be it impacts gameplay, but I'm just based on what they're saying here, right? But one of the most noticeable examples of this, when players make slide tackles, leaving a trail behind them where they've connected with the turf. That just sounds cool to me. Like, and you can kind of see the cuts into the grass. I think that's cool. Lighting in FM20 has been improved, as well as due to the introduction of image-based lighting, shading, exterior lighting during the match, allowing everything to be lit more naturally. Cool. It just says that some of the graphical improvements, so we'll have to see what the rest is. But the slide tackle thing is what I'm excited about, and the weather. So it's like, it's great that it's raining, but like if the pitch doesn't look any different, like, that's kind of weird. So that's cool that it seems to be showing that. Well, again, they didn't show what that looks like. Maybe they want you to wait till you buy the game, but I think that's interesting. You get backroom advice on who you should pick for each matchday squad. Kind of like the auto pick on the tactics screen, but this is it's giving you the advice here. You can choose to ignore them or take some of them or all of them or whatever. You can still make changes ahead of kickoff, so it's not like locking you in. I guess I could pull that up so you can take a look at it. I mean, you can always go to the link in the description, but here's who I'm suggesting we pick. I don't know why the goalkeeping coach is giving you maybe there's only one other staff member at Wimbledon. I'm not sure. Okay, so hey, this is the recommendation. This is who we're gonna recommend you swap in or out, right? Okay. We've tweaked advice across the game. One such example is how we improve the ability to select any square on the tactics pitch, bringing up more detailed analysis on what factors are influencing your strength. So instead of you just getting like all greens here and a little bit of red and you're like, why? You can click on each section of the pitch to learn, hey, encouraging signs in this area of the pitch. We've got high positive influence from our inside forward here. He will frequently cut inside with the ball into this space. And we've got Welbeck, our pressing forward, will be looked to be consistent goal threat by occupying this area of the pitch for long periods of time. So I guess that's going to show you if your tactic is way out of whack, why it's way out of whack. Like if all of a sudden you've got a red square right here, why is that? And is it because you've got a midfielder playing it right back because you've got injuries or something like that, right? Responsibilities to the fore across more areas of the game. This is about staff. You'll now have the ability to change your responsibility settings within several news items relating to various areas of the game. For example, on a news item relating to scouting, you have the option to click the drop-down menu and adjust every aspect of your scouting responsibilities there and then without having to go into the staff section and change it from there. Okay, so that's like a quality of life change. The responsibility screen itself has been overhauled to include more information about your responsibilities and the responsibility you delegate to your staff. On the overview tab, your responsibilities are broken down by area, and you can choose to delegate or take control of each individual responsibility for under that area. So again, I want to know on the training side with my youth team, can I only change what I'm doing with one player, or do I have to take over everybody? A large way football has evolved is in relation to staff roles. We're lucky that we get to speak to lots of people, blah, blah, blah. Each staff role, however small, changes the football club, changes the way that other roles interact with it. Okay, so there's some different dynamics there where you sign a new coach that does this, or a new, a data analysis, a data analyst, and it changes things. A number of new staff roles added, introducing the technical director, a role with the ability to offer backroom advice from the very top, judging staff ability and staff potential. Interesting. Okay, that'd be curious to see what that looks like long term. They are a highly senior member of staff focusing on other senior members of the team to suggest coaching courses and report on staff progression. Further proof. Okay, so, this is how I play Football Manager. Is I assign my staff, and if they have good attributes, decent attributes, and we keep winning, and they're not annoying, like I'm wanting to triple their wages, then I generally extend them. So this looks like it's now you've got your development side with your players and giving you development side with your staff. So like if you got a staff member, like one of the things I'm running into right now in my Capitaly save is I got a manager who can't get his Continental Pro. Like he's just massively struggling. So I'm curious if there's a way to influence that. Like can he get mentoring from a senior member of the staff? Or is it an indicator like we got to cut this guy? Is like the technical director be like, time to get rid of that guy. So I'm curious what that looks like. Head of player development. Okay. Especially in elite clubs, a significant number of players on loan, applying their trade across the globe, blah, 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 blah. Recommends the players I think would benefit from a loan spell and where he believes they should go while providing loan reports to the manager to easily track those. Okay, like, it's a new role, so it's probably a new person you have to pay, but, like, I'm curious of how significant the actual changes in the game in terms of you should loan this player. Because if I'm remembering correctly, like, my assistant manager will still say, like, you'll get that report that talks about your players and they're, they need to be training this, or you need to cut back on training here, or they're never going to develop over there. And then one of the reports includes like needs more playing time. So is it a significant change in how that report is run? We'll have to wait and see. Lone player progress concerns not only their performance of their minutes on the pitch. Oh, please tell me on the history tab there is a minutes column. That is the dream. But the fact that it's included, like, again, it doesn't really help me to know that my player got 4 substitute appearances. If it was the 89th minute or the 60th minute, I don't know, because it wasn't included in the past. So that, I mean, unless you had like you were watching every game, right? And compiling those match reports, but on the overall screen, that's awesome to get the number of minutes. Okay, great. And then lastly, but definitely not leastly, the playing time pathway. Re-envision player development, an aspect of the game that is high on the priority list of every player. Becoming a manager gives you a chance to carefully control how you bring through talent while overseeing the progress of your important players too. We're giving you more freedom here, more ability to plan long-term, set individual pathways for all players. More so than ever, we're seeing young players come in with a clear route to becoming a star player, or senior players immediately established as important or star players from the moment they walk through the door. So this is, you're going after that wonder kid, and he's like, I want a bajillion in wages, and I want to be a key player right now. And it's like, you're 16. right? So you can set playing time in the future. So like maybe you start out as a impact sub, and then the next season you're a squad player, and the season after that you're a star player, right? Maybe it gives you that those types of options. Again, I can't play with this yet, but I'm curious if that would be something to attract those types of players. But you're giving them a pathway to come in, right? You can fine tune their pathway through changes to their contract, alter playing time with 12 descriptive statuses, which indicate how much game time you're offering per season across their contract. So let's take a look here. Impact sub, then a regular starter, right? And you could choose a breakthrough prospect, future prospect, youngster, emergency backup, fringe player, yada, yada, yada. I like it. Now, what'll be interesting? Ryan Cassidy. Hey, go watch my Cabin Teely save. What will be key is how the player reacts, right? So it's great that this is changing, but I'm guessing, obviously, they've changed how all of the players, when you go to offer them a contract or you go to do a transfer, how they're going to react to this, right? And that's probably going to take some getting used to, would be my guess. Like, will it mean that if you're at a smaller club, right, if you're at a championship club, and you go after one of those really good prospects and you say, I'm going to make you an important player from day one, will that sway them more than Arsenal coming in and being like, we're going to make you a fringe player for the first 2 seasons, and then in the last season you become an important player, right? Like the dynamics of that and like competing contract offers, that'll be interesting to see, actually. Let's see here. I'm going to check one thing. Okay. You both know where you stand. It's a mutual agreement promise. So it should go some way to alleviating potential issues with keeping the squad happy. Now, I'm curious, are they going to give us any indication of like how much playing time is associated with each of these, right? Like if I'm a squad player, that's different from a regular starter. So I'm expecting fewer games. Like if I come off the bench a lot, am I going to be happy? Right? Versus a fringe player. If I come off the bench every 10 games, am I going to be happy? So like figuring out the change there is going to be kind of interesting. Goalkeepers have their own tailored playing time. That makes sense, right? You've got a cup goalkeeper and a first choice goalkeeper. I like that, right? So you can say, hey, we want to sign you, but you're a youngster, and we've got De Gea in goal, so you're not going to be the starter, but we're going to make you the cup goalkeeper. Maybe that'll attract some different prospects to your club. Blah, blah, blah. Emergency backup, for example, strictly implies that the player is likely to get no minutes at all except in cases of injury or suspension to a more regular starter. But again, like, what about the other ones? I wish there was like a list. Like this is what this is the ranges of what they're going to expect. The playing time pathway also impact players you send out on loan. You and the potential loan club will be able to negotiate in more detail how they plan to use your youngster, yes, with a defined level of playing time. This will help you decide which destination will be most suitable when weighing up multiple options. To keep track of the changes, you'll receive regular updates in this department at the end of each season, blah, blah, blah. So you're aware that your former future prospect is now a squad player and your former star is now nothing more than a fringe player. So you can reassess the pathways. This part, I'm thrilled about. Again, I'm assuming based off of that you're going to be able to then go to the manager of the club that you loaned the player out to be like, you said it was going to be this, make changes or I'm going to recall them. Because right now, honestly, I feel like nothing happens when you do that. It's like, oh yeah, I agree. Or like, oh yeah, you're not going to dictate my squad. And you're like, oh, thanks. And it's like the only option is recall them at that point. So I'm curious if there is an issue with playing time. If you go to them and you're like, hey, what's up? That they'll make some changes and it'll actually go back to what you agreed. Because what would be really interesting if there's like, in the future, we're not going to loan players there, or we're a lot less likely to loan players to you. Like those types of dynamics between clubs to be like, you told us you were going to play him as a regular starter and he ended up being a fringe player and I'm not going to loan you any more of my studs, So that all that is kind of curious, but that's where we're at. Again, I highly recommend you go check out Miles SI here. And while you're there, Football Manager, because they're going to be releasing more features, but these are kind of the headline ones. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. What are you most excited about with this? What are you most curious about? What do you think is being made to be a big deal and maybe isn't a big deal? Overall, I think these are all positive changes. I can't wait to see slide tackles and especially my players. I had one recently where I had 2 slide tackles on the same player at the same time. Like, it was like they were like ice skating together and they both missed. So can we see the cuts into the pitch? We'll have to find out. The last thing I'm going to mention is I do have an affiliate link with 2Game. I'm just going to tell you this because it's a good deal. It's better than on Steam. If you own FM19, you get a 10% discount. So in the US, that takes the $49.99 price and drops it to $44.99. Automatically with 2Game, you're at $42.99 in the US. Plus, you get 10% off if you use code GRAYHAIR. The link is in the description. For my European friends, same thing. It automatically drops it down to $32.99, but you'll save another 10% on top of that. It's a significant deal, and I get a little bit of cut, and it supports the channel. So if you've not purchased Football Manager 20 yet, 2Game has told me that the price is likely to go up on release date. So no one knows when that is. I'm guessing mid-October. My guess is now, like, today's September 19th. So maybe they're a month out, right? So like around the 19th, 20th, 21st, whatever that date looks like for the release of the beta. So if you haven't checked that out, the link is in the description. You got to use code GRAYHAIR though. So you click on the link and use code GRAYHAIR to get the discount. It's a great deal. All right, my friends, hit the like button. Let me know what features you're excited about with FM20. What features are you kind of like, you know, maybe it's not as big of a deal based off the things that they've revealed thus far. They have recommended here that you, but that's it for today. Keep an eye on our social channels for more feature drops across the next few weeks, both here and over at Miles SI. So I highly recommend you go check those guys out. Follow them on Twitter. And we'll have to see what else they come out with. And they're going to like dribble it out. Obviously, they're building excitement. So let me know what you're excited about. We'll see you next time. Have a good one.